Hi there. Welcome to the From Lab to Launch podcast by Qualio, where we share inspiring stories from the people on the front lines of life sciences. Tune in and leave inspired to bring your life-saving products to the world.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly from Qualio and your host here at From Lab to Launch. Thanks for joining the show today. We've published over 50 interviews with innovators in life sciences across the world. It's been so inspiring to hear the stories of perseverance and innovation to improve human health and save lives. If you've enjoyed those conversations, please consider subscribing and giving us a review on Apple or Spotify. And if you want to be on From Lab to Launch, please see the application linked in the show notes. Today, we're chatting with Ethan Drower, co-founder and operating partner of CiteMed, which is revolutionizing the European Union Medical Device Regulation, or EU MDR, process. Literature search and review is the cornerstone of medical device companies' clinical evaluation reports, and CiteMed has made this process more streamlined and optimized than ever. The CiteMed team was formed to deliver a high volume of beautifully written and formatted literature reviews on timelines that will enable companies to meet their EU MDR goals. CiteMed's top goal is to help companies get their medical products to market as quickly as possible, all while maintaining state-of-the-art compliance with the European Commission regulations. Ethan's been on our show before, and we're thrilled to have him back and hear all the latest updates with him and CiteMed. Let's bring him in. Hi, Ethan. How are you?
Hey, Kelly. Thanks for having me again.
Thanks for coming back. So for our new listeners, tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, personally, I've always been, I'm a trained software engineer. So I've always come from the software side of the house when it comes to building new products, building new solutions. So that was my focus in university. And I kind of bounced around industries for a while after that. I was in financial markets for a few years, consumer apps for a few years, and then only in the last 4 or 5 years or so have I really found my home in the regulatory space, specifically within that medical devices.
So tell us then about CiteMed and what inspired you to start that business. I think we all recognize the challenge that is CER and clinical experience report. And of course, obviously with the EU MDR updates just in the last couple of years, that really expanded the scope of organizations that had to go through those processes, where before so many, it was just your critical type devices, your class 3s and whatnot. So it's definitely a hot topic in the broader medical device space for sure. But tell us about CiteMed and what it is that you guys are doing there.
Right. The inspiration for CiteMed, it really was brought on by EU MDR because it was just such a massive shift in focus from a regulatory perspective to heavy on clinical evaluation, heavy on literature review, and on pretty much all of your devices. You have to do something. Whereas before, you could get away with next to nothing or virtually nothing in a lot of cases. So the idea came to us, through it was really through my father. This was a dinner table kind of startup idea that came through, and he had been in the industry for decades and was recently tasked with coming up with a plan for EU MDR and completion of hundreds of CER updates. And he was telling me that he was showing me what he was working on and essentially saying, there's no way we can find the staff. There's just not enough labor in the world to get this done on a cost-effective and timely manner. And that's really, where my background came in, where I said, well, okay, well, what if we built a tool that helped people, be 20 times, 30 times faster and more thorough? And from there, we've really spent all of our time trying to do just that and build tools that support our clients and support our own team with the conducting of this research, conducting of these reviews, and delivering these reports quickly and of the highest caliber possible.
That's really exciting. And also absolutely what a painful process it used to be. I can recall subscribing to organizations that just sent you lists and lists of abstracts, and people would just sit and read and read and read and then go, oh, maybe we need to request these 10. And sometimes you had to justify even the expense of the 10 that you would request, and then read those. And yeah, we had whole departments, and that's all they do all year.
It's incredible, especially in this industry, and you guys know this better than anybody. There's so much work that relies on the brilliance of the regulatory affairs professionals, and they're great people, right? Quality and regulatory people are incredible, and for far too long, companies have relied on them to keep track of all of the paperwork and do everything themselves without any hope of making systems or building better tools. For us, this is really just, it's been a long time coming. And that's why I love talking with you guys, because you share that vision as well. The time to catch up to the inefficiencies these regulations have created, the time is now. And we have the tools to do it. Somebody just has to really dedicate themselves to bringing them to life.
Definitely. Definitely. Yeah. You talk about, of course, we're in the EQMS business, right? And I started my career in this industry when we still had to fill out carbon copied records, because one went with the batch and one went somewhere else, and they were all numbered in the corner. And if you lost one, oh my gosh, the stuff we had to go through to go find that piece of paper, right? And yeah, so from a literature search perspective, that's a whole wow. I mean, you've got the power of the internet driving so much information, but how you sort through it and how do you, I mean, it's so overwhelming in a different sort of perspective. Now there's too much information. So obviously, a tool like yours, that's amazing to really target the areas, do the filtering, make sure you're getting good, solid information. Wow. Talk about taking the pain out of it.
Right. Well, you hit the nail on the head. The perspective has changed. It used to be companies don't have access to enough information, and it's tough to make decisions. And now they have so much information, they can't remember what they looked at a year ago. So the challenges are about organization and optimization now, instead of just raw collection. You have infinite amounts, but what are you going to do with it that's actually useful and produces the real world result of a safe device or a good submission, or whatever your goals may be? Hopefully both of those are your goals.
Definitely. Definitely. How are you finding too? Coming from the EQMS side, right? There's still folks out there that just love their paper. They just want that. They want that piece of paper. They want the security that comes with that signature. So we see a little bit of resistance in places. I would imagine that perhaps there's some similar sorts of resistance to automated tools or, software not maybe trusting that information. Are you guys seeing some of that in your rollout of this?
Yes, that's a great point. I feel there's too much, especially in the software world within regulatory, there's too much over marketing and over promising of what a software system does. And as regulatory people are very astute, and they don't really respond to fluffy, oh, it's artificial intelligence, it handles it for you, right? That does not fly in our worlds. So we believe in building tools that support the RA professionals. We do not build solutions to replace them. So for us, as soon as we get past that barrier of our system doesn't make the decisions for you, we want you to make the decisions. But what we don't want you to do is all of the other nonsense of organizing the data, presenting it, removing all of the duplicates and bad data, spitting it out into documents. We do all of that. So once a regulatory affairs manager realizes that all we're doing is taking away the nightmare of the formatting of these reports, we tend to see that adoption, it goes much smoother after that. But there are misconceptions, especially with companies trying to overpromise with these magical machine learning based solutions, and we've just abandoned that approach entirely. That's not what we're out to do. We're out to just build utilities that assist the people that we know to be incredible and to be incredibly competent. So I think you can kind of help the adoption curve by presenting yourself in that light, right? This is a tool. This is not a replacement. This is not a new thing. This is a better way to continue to do what you're already doing.
Definitely. I really like what you said there. It's not a replacement. I've had customers or potential customers ask us things like, does your tool do risk management? Well, sort of. I mean, it's a similar situation,
but we need
right?
you.
We can make the information available to you and we can organize it in a way, but at the end, there still requires a human to make a decision. And I don't think we'll ever get away from that because the machines, even smart ones, can't pick up nuance, right? There's always that element of some other pieces of information, maybe that the machine filtered and said, well, this wasn't relevant, right? So I love what you said.
Exactly.
With this is not a replacement. It's support. It's doing the grunt work for you so that you can then assess the information and make the best decisions possible.
Right. And to be honest, this is not an industry where I ever want to replace the human, because the people that we've worked with, they're incredible. Nobody understands these devices and how they function in the marketplace and how they function with their customers as well as these people. And you're not going to be able to just replace them with a complex series of logic. There's no need to. They're fantastic. If they were bad and people were getting hurt because regulatory and quality professionals weren't good at their jobs, okay, maybe that's a different challenge for us to solve. But that hasn't been our experience. We've found incredible people, so let's just help them.
Yeah, give them more
Right.
tools to do their jobs better. Yep. I've often said as a QA professional, I'm only as good as the information I have in front of me. And so, this is definitely a powerful, powerful way to get more information in the places it needs to be.
Yeah, in a useful way.
Definitely. So, I guess to kind of pivot a little bit then, what are some mistakes maybe that companies are making or things that you're seeing as you're working with these different organizations? What are some mistakes companies should avoid during the EU MDR and the post-market surveillance process?
We might need another podcast to get through all of them, Kelly. I'll give you my top two, maybe three. We'll see how we go.
Okay.
The first is the most obvious, and that's around timeline and planning. The submission process we're generally find it's taking 2 to 3 times what a manufacturer expects. And that's for a whole host of reasons. That's because it takes them a long time to actually put their documents together, but it also takes a long time to get a response from the notified body. And that can be a completely unpredictable chunk of time. Could be months, could be weeks. And depending on your response that you get back, you could be scrambling to fix things, or it could be a see you in 6 months type of correspondence. So try to plan. I know that's hard, but try to plan for as much safety margin as you can with getting these documents done. And don't try to line everything up perfectly to your deadline and expect that your tech file is going to get approved right away and everything's going to be fine. So that's probably the biggest, most general one, is just setting good expectations. To get a little bit, into more of the nitty gritty of MDR, especially in our world of clinical evaluation, we find that a lot of companies that don't have a ton of experience in their regulatory departments, they tend to struggle with making and supporting of the claims of their device. And by that, I mean, especially under clinical evaluation, you're making a safety claim about how safe your device is, and you're making a performance claim about what is it doing, right? How is it helping the patient, if it's helping the patient? And we have a lot of clients struggle with taking their marketing claims of saying, well, my device is better because it does all of these things, and trying to put those into their clinical evaluation claims. And that's where you can really run into problems, because there's not going to be clinical data that supports all of your marketing claims in the same way, right? If you are marketing a scalpel that you think is better, and because of these reasons, the blade is, I don't know, special or in some way, you're not going to find studies that support that. What you instead would be able to find more likely are studies that support the fact that it's a blade, it cuts things and it doesn't break. Right? So we have it's a bit of a dance to try to temper back the differentiating claims that you would make in a marketing perspective versus the claims that your notified body or any regulatory agency actually care about, which is it safe? Does it actually work as intended within the body? They don't care about anything else. And, that can be tough for a marketing person to swallow sometimes because that's their whole life is differentiating the product. But regulatory wants it to be the same.
That's an interesting perspective too. That is such a dance. I mean, going through the design control process, figuring out what you even are going to try to claim, as far as your label claim, and then how does that translate to marketing? And I hadn't even thought about trying to tie that into your CER, because you're right. It wouldn't be comparative. Doctors aren't doing comparative studies just for fun. They're just using things and then reporting on what they observe. So how do you turn that into better or different? I hadn't even thought about it from that perspective.
Yeah, that's been tripping up quite a few people in the industry because you can't find clinical data to support all of those nuanced things. You can only find it to support the base claims of a specific type of device and how it works in the body or on the body. So that's a major one. That's pretty in the weeds. I'll give you one more quick one. And I guess it would be around underestimating the workload of continued compliance and updates. Most people are just concerned about, okay, how do I get my MDR update approved, right? How do I get my recertification done? Whatever I got to put in there, whatever I got to put in those documents, they just say, go ahead, do what you need to. And it's a struggle for us from our perspective as advisors to say, we'll get this document, we'll pass its audit. But this document has a whole list of things that you are now committing to doing every year or every 2 years consistently in the same process. And you got to make sure that you're doing them, right? Yeah, it's sometimes an awkward conversation to have, but what systems and processes do you have in place to actually update your literature review every year? Are you doing your vigilance? How are you organizing the data? These are the same challenges of quality, right? It's not just about, okay,
just
we're
gonna
approved.
Say, yep. It's more than just getting the piece of paper. Maintaining is actually harder.
It is.
Yep.
And if you've got multiple devices and you're a small team, I'm sure you guys have a lot of customers that are teams of one, right? And that person's not going to be able to do 5 of these CER document updates every year on their own, and then still do all the FDA stuff and do new product tech files. I mean, so for us, we always try to drive that home is whether you're going to use our platform to keep this in line for you or not, it doesn't matter. What matters is that you realize you need a process and somebody's going to have to do this. So it needs to be on your budget, needs to be on your mind, because it will get you in a few years. And then you'll be having other challenges, right?
Yeah, definitely. Well, and I can see too, like the year over year for you guys, because once you've set up your search, for example, with the certain parameters and you're delivering the information and you've gone through the process and you've gotten your approvals, you've got to be able to replicate that. And so if you don't stick with a tool, now you're going to have to replicate it manually, and nobody wants to do that. But
No.
Yeah, there's definitely a huge advantage there too, to use a software tool like what you guys have built here to make sure that you're consistent. Or, I've been in situations too where, you see a new problem happen in the market or in the field in your area. So now you need to update and add a few new keywords to go do some more searching. I assume, with your tool, that's a pretty simple process.
We save the protocol that we're running, and you can run it as many times as you want, as often as you want. And you can store and trend all of those results. And it's always safe. Same thing like in the QMS world. You want that audit trail of processes that can be replicated. And that's one of the bigger notified body focal points now is, okay, you've given us a plan. Can we run the same searches, do the same process, get the same results? And if you're sending them a whole mess of tangled Excel files and, zips of hundreds of documents that aren't named, in a standardized way, it's just going to come back to you. It's
Yeah,
not going to work. I'm sure
definitely.
by your laugh, I can tell you've seen a few of those.
Oh,
A
I've
few of
seen
those
them. Yeah,
that
yeah. That's why I'm thinking back. Like, oh, yeah, that can be so painful.
it's just
Well, and it's
yes,
funny too, because as so I'm in quality, not regulatory. So my job was always to basically QC everything before it got submitted. So yeah, some of the packs that got handed to me over the years, and I'm just like, you just kind of glaze over. And how do you, at some
right.
point you're partway into it going, I don't even know if I could say that I agree or have seen everything or because it is such a jumbled mess.
Right. I mean, you barely know what language it's in at first. You're like, is
Sometimes.
this is this meant for our department or is this something else? Yeah.
Well, and I was always curious too. And then, so you hand all that to a regulator, and no wonder questions come back because, the regulator is seeing these submissions from, hundreds of different companies per year. And
Yeah.
so the first thing they have to do is figure out, okay, what language are these guys speaking, right? To use a language analogy, right? Because it's all, everybody has their own terminology and semantics, right? That we all
Right.
use. Oh, we do that, but we call it this, right? So if you've got these standardized tools, we can all start to speak the same language. That just speeds up your regulatory process as well, I would think, to make it easier for them to, instead of wading through the piles and buckets
That's
and boxes.
that's an amazing point because I think oftentimes we kind of abstract the concept of our regulatory auditors. And we have to remember that these are just people that are, having the same tough days that we are. And if we send them documents that are going to confuse them or create more work for them to review, it's just going to negatively impact your scoring because who wants to do that after lunch? There's 2 hours left in the day and you get a jumbled mess of documents. You can't understand how they're linked together or how they did it. They're just going to flag it, tag it with a nonconformity, and send it back to you. They're not going to go through it. So
Yeah.
to your point, I mean, I think this is also kind of a shared vision, but how can we standardize these types of submissions so that everybody's on the same page, that the regulatory agencies know what they're getting so they can more quickly and more efficiently process them. We know what they want and what they're reading, and so we can more efficiently put them together, which brings costs down, brings headaches down. um, you know it's striving towards that uniformity is really, I mean, I think it's a noble goal. I think it's going to take a while, but somebody has to try to push it forward.
Definitely. Well, and I was just thinking too, you're talking about uniformity and stuff. This is a great opportunity for regulatory harmonization around the globe as well, right? Because, I mean, you just look at, for example, I have to write a 510K to submit to the FDA, and then I have to turn around and write a technical file for a notified body, which is a different format and a different layout. And mostly the
Right.
same, but slightly not, right? Not enough the
Not
same that
enough.
you could just, that you
Not
could just
enough.
take your 510K and start plugging in all the pieces. But anything related to post-market surveillance, like we all have the same goal, right? The different regulators, we're all in it for safety and efficacy. We want these things to work. We want to change people's lives or heal them. But
Right.
if we all go about it so differently, then you're back into that translation game of
Yes.
how do I write this up and who sees it where and
And
so yeah,
it's astounding.
I wonder too, now that the MDR has gone into effect, I know the FDA has been working a lot on harmonization, and we've got MDSAP and we've got some different opportunities out there. I wonder, and I hope maybe they're watching this to see how it all goes. And as they start to standardize the medical device regulations, that we'll see some standardization around post-market surveillance and clinical experience reporting, even into the FDA, I hope.
Right. Well, I mean, you can hope for it, but your point is right. We all have the same goal. It's to put out as many effective and safe devices as possible to help as many people as possible. So my hope is that, technology, in my opinion, kind of accelerates things to the point of mass adoption. That's one of the beauties of it. So my hope is that tools like ours and tools like yours can get so good that it makes it obvious that they have to be used. And whether it becomes things that we've created or things that somebody else has created, it's immaterial. What matters is that we're striving towards the creation of some type of tool and standardized process that is so efficient you can't refute it. I mean, and that's kind of the dream, right? But that's always been my hope with technology, because in other industries, that's really how it's worked. We're a little bit slow over here.
well, yes, it's life sciences. We don't like change. Change is
Right,
bad.
right.
Oh my
I
goodness.
have faith in the industry. I know we will get there, and when we do, it'll be a far more researched and well thought out solution. So that does make me happy.
I'm with you on that one. And I'm also optimistic. I was very excited, Good Automated Manufacturing Practices, GAMP, has been one of those guidelines that we've all lived and died by for as long as I can remember in this industry. It finally updated last month, and it changes so much about their goal is really to enable innovation, right? Get us all using these automated tools, really thinking about them from that risk-based perspective. And honestly, I mean, the longer I'm doing this from an automated tool perspective, the more I think there's actually more risk in staying on paper and moving forward and embracing technology and its ability to help us have all the information we need available quickly and consistently.
There's opportunity cost, right?
Yeah.
And that's a great point, especially especially when it comes to the startup world with devices. And one of our other main goals is, it's not just standardizing this process and taking over the world. It's how can we make it easier and cheaper so that the smaller company that has a newer product that still needs some work, they can actually afford to get it approved and get it out there and helping people. And if it's going to cost you hundreds of thousands of dollars to do the paperwork to approve devices, people aren't going to want to create devices anymore, except for the big companies that have the budget and don't care, right? But if you want the innovators, like you do in the manufacturing space as well, there needs to be a way for them to safely and cheaply try things, right? And foster that kind of atmosphere of creativity. And that's just one of the benefits of technology. We can make it cheaper and safer at the same time, which is unheard of.
Yeah, it really does remove that barrier big time. It's interesting, in working with different startups, and especially in the lower risk class, it's a very common regulatory approach to go to market and try not to make too many, if any, claims, or maybe you have broader claims planned, but your pathway is, let's just get it in the market now, and then we'll work on post-market surveillance and expanded indication studies and those kinds of things in order to get to the indication we really want to have, because we know our device really can do these things that are amazing, that are going to heal people or whatever, but the pathway to get there, and especially with MDR change, that really did change, I think, a lot of people's thinking. And so this is an amazing way to remove one of those barriers. We can make post-market surveillance easier and not so scary.
Right. I mean, how silly is that? You can't actually talk legally about the benefits of your device that you've spent, years toiling over, because you can't afford to. You can't afford to prove that it actually does the things that you've designed it to. To me, that's a tragedy, and that's something that can be improved within the industry.
Definitely. Well, I'm going to switch gears here for another minute or so. Just talk a little bit about being an entrepreneur.
Yeah, throw me some curveballs, Kelly.
Being an entrepreneur, what are some resources you would recommend to others that are just trying to get started?
Ooh, okay, good one. I would say it depends on how new you are. I think if you're brand new and you have some ideas, etc., the most valuable thing you can do is you can talk to as many people as possible that have done what you're trying to, or have done something similar. And you're not necessarily looking for, when you talk to those people, which is easier than most would think, because especially entrepreneurs, they're always willing to help somebody that's down the line. So they will call you and they will talk to you. But what you should be looking for is, you should be looking for broader mindsets about how this person views their business and their team and their product. And you should be trying to embody those mindsets. the individual skills that you need as an entrepreneur, you will learn those as you go, right? You will learn accounting, you will learn sales, you will learn marketing as you need to, but the mindset of how do I approach this thing as a whole, that's what's really going to be the deciding factor in how successful you are and how quickly. So talk to as many people that have done it as you can get your hands on. That's probably my biggest one. I mean, I can give you some book recommendations, I guess.
Sure, yeah.
Let's see. You know, one of my recent favorites would be a book called Traction, and it's a framework for how to run and systematically grow a business. And there are a million frameworks out there. It doesn't matter that you pick this one, but what's important is that you start seeing a business that you're creating as a series of systems and people, right? One of the biggest mistakes early entrepreneurs make is they try and do everything themselves, and they just kind of assume that that's how it's going to be forever. As an entrepreneur, one amazing exercise should be making a list of all of the things you have to do to make your company run, deliver the product or service, get paid, etc. Make a list of all of these things, and then start to figure out, okay, how can I hire people and build processes to do all of those things? And another one of my favorite reads is a book called Fire Yourself by Adam Anderson, which is a, you know, it's a strong title, but the premise is if you take that approach and you continue to hire the right people and put in place the right systems that do all of the things your business needs to, one day you should wake up and, you know, call your staff and they'll say, why are you calling us? We don't need you. And that is the day you really ultimately want to reach as an entrepreneur. Not that you're useless, but that you've built such a collaborative group of people and processes to grow and accomplish your actual business goals. So I think trying to frame it in approaches like that is very effective for new entrepreneurs. And we kind of get lost in the hustle, if that makes sense.
Definitely. And that was, as you were speaking, that was kind of the thing I was thinking of. It's here's all the things, but also what are the things I actually am not very good at or don't know how to do? And is there value in me learning them, or is that a thing to outsource? Is that a thing to find a partner or find an employee, or, you know, now obviously in the entrepreneur space, you know, you could be perhaps constrained from a resource or finance perspective, but yeah,
Right.
what pieces make sense for you to do now versus later? I guess also spending a lot of time in the startup space, that's a place where that can make or break you. If you don't spend your time and efforts in the right places, or you try to do it out of order.
Prioritization, especially if you don't have a lot of funding to take care of all of it at once, right? If you don't have an influx of capital to say, here's all the departments, I can hire somebody to build all of those departments, right? That's the dream. It never works like that. You're always 1 month of invoices away from not being able to pay yourself, right? And that's when it's important to be able to prioritize. What are the tasks that only I can do? And I think you'll find most entrepreneurs think it's everything. Then, you know, I'm so special and talented. But you'll find as you really start to break it down, in fact, most of those tasks you shouldn't even be doing, because you can actually hire somebody that's better than you at it. And that can be a hit to the ego, but that level of self-honesty, I would say, is an entrepreneur's biggest indicator of success. When you can say, I can do sales, but let's be honest, Kelly, I'm not that good, right? I'm not that good. I'm not a Superman. So maybe I should be looking to find somebody who is significantly better, and they can teach me a thing or two. You know, that's a great way to approach it. But like you said, it's hard. It's hard to know.
Definitely. Well, I think we're coming up on some time here. So where can folks go to learn more about CiteMed and get connected with you?
LinkedIn, we're very active. The whole team posts and puts up wonderful articles that I take all of the credit for. Just kidding. But you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can just find my name, Ethan Drower. I'm the only one. if you're interested in more about what we're doing and how our platform works, you can check out our website. It's citemedical.com. And that's it. We're pretty easy to find, and we're always happy to chat. So
excellent. Well, thank you so much for your time, Ethan. It's been a pleasure chatting with you again.
As always, I'm looking forward to our next conversation.
Me too. Me too. All right. Thanks.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of From Lab to Launch, brought to you by Qualio. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe and give the show a positive review. It really helps us out. For more information about Qualio, our guest today, or to be a guest on a future episode, please refer to the show notes. Until next time.